live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart and co-host, Joe DeLeone. Good evening, good sir. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm excited that we're getting back to a topic that is going to allow for us to yell at each other. That's what I'm looking forward to today.
I don't see. You said I was going to yell at you. I don't really.
I like yelling at each other. That's the whole point of the show. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
I think that you're a blithering idiot.
Okay, well we probably could have guessed that was going to.
Okay, I don't think you're a blithering idiot because 4/5 of our top 5 SEC head coaches, we agree on in the same order. It's just one coach that you have in and that I have in that we are probably going to have a discussion on. But you're right. We are going to have a discussion on the top 5 head coaches. We've been pushing this back for literally a week and a half, 2 weeks. We've been trying to get to it.
No, it was a week. Not that crazy.
Okay,
yeah,
a week. And we just never got to it because we kept arguing about God knows what we were arguing about. But tonight we get to top 5 SEC head coaches. I got to admit, I already did my Big Ten list, and I thought that was a little bit more difficult than doing the one for the SEC at the current moment.
Well, and here's a take that you might actually end up hating. Outside of the top 6 coaches, the list of the SEC coaches isn't good. It's really weak.
I agree with
and it's not like me saying like there's bad coaches. There's nobody that has a resume outside of the top. There's 6 guys that are a part of the debate of the top 5. There is nobody outside of that belongs in the discussion because most of the top brands control the success in the conference. So a guy like Eli Drinkwitz had 2 good years, but he's not going to go over Josh Heupel or over Lane Kiffin and Sam Pittman or Billy Napier. None of those guys are proven or have actually accomplished much, and some are on the hot seat. So there's really a small chunk of coaches that you and I can actually choose from compared to the Big Ten, where there's a lot of different angles that I think that we could take.
Do you, at the current moment, do you trust Billy Napier more or Lincoln Riley?
Billy Napier more at the current moment.
How ironic, right?
Well, I don't like Lincoln Riley, so everybody already knows that.
All right. I'm trying to think. PJ Fleck or
Billy Napier.
Or
Elko.
So I think I do see what you're saying, but now that I'm kind of like thinking about it, I do think that the bottom tier, like if you ranked them against the Big Ten, you'd probably depends on where and who you take. I tell you what, though, can I tell you what I wasted 45 minutes of my time doing today that had nothing involved in reference to this show? I had an argument with myself between James Franklin and Dan Lanning.
I'm kind of laughing at the thought that you were sitting there arguing with yourself, and it makes
my wife sense. Literally called me a psychopath.
The Dan Lanning, you said Dan Lanning and James Franklin?
I had a conversation in my mind and wrote out pros and cons about Dan Lanning and James Franklin.
I haven't put my list together yet, obviously, but I would put Dan Lanning over James Franklin.
You say that until you start writing things down.
This is where the Big Ten conversation gets really tricky.
Yep.
There are a lot of coaches that have a lot of wins, but not a lot of good wins, not a lot of quality wins, not a lot of big bowl game wins or national championships. So that's where this gets, do we go with the guy who's transformed a team and taken them to another level? Or do we take a guy that's accumulated a crap ton of wins because he's been there longer? That's kind of the debate.
Let me ask you a question.
Okay.
Name this head coach, okay, in the Big Ten.
Mm-hmm.
In the last 5 years, or actually it'd be 6, but you would know because Dan Lanning hadn't been there that long. The last 3 years I can't do that, but just coach's resume in general. That's how I'll frame it.
Okay.
Has won the Big Ten, averages 11 years a season, made it to a Final Four. Who am I talking about?
Franklin.
That crazy, isn't it?
Well, but my argument would be that Franklin's been there like 4 times as long.
And that's the last 3 years.
Yeah, but one guy's been a head coach for much longer. The other guy's been a head coach for 3 years.
I get it, but what am I supposed to ding James Franklin because if he's been there longer?
Yeah, but am I supposed to ding Dan Lanning because he hasn't had as much time to build his program?
He's 1-8 against ranked opponents.
What's the record for Franklin?
He's got more than one win. I mean, he literally had 2 in the playoffs, if we want to be honest. I mean, Boise State and SMU are still ranked opponents. Here's the thing that you could say, though. I thought this is where I thought you'd go, because this is where I went Dan Lanning. They literally beat him in the Big Ten championship game this year.
Well, right. The head-to-head is the argument that could be made for that I should have used, which we'll be doing on Wednesday, because we're here actually to talk about SEC.
I shouldn't have said last 3 years to Elks. I just meant in career. I was trying to just paint a picture of like career, like what they've done. So I didn't misspeak there. All right. So we will talk about the SEC. Joe, the ACC just beat the shit out of Clemson and Florida State.
I think that they're just kind of playing with each other. I really don't think any of the news that we saw today means anything for either side. I think a lot of people are making this out to be much more than it is. Whatever happens when their contract ends happens when it ends. Nothing is going to happen before that.
Dude, did you see On3 already talking about realignment? They're talking about realignment in 2030. Like, can we just like bring that up right quick?
To their justification, like to justify why they're doing that. My job was to create social media engagement. I'm going to post about realignment. Some of our most consumed content on this channel is realignment talk.
And I hate it. And that's the crazy thing. I hate it. Like,
one of our most watched live shows, and was literally at the beginning, you saying, I hate talking about realignment, but this is the Pac-12. It was the Pac-12 stuff.
Oh, I hated that. Bring back the Pac-12.
I don't disagree, but it's news. It's shifts the world of college football.
ACC won today because neither one of them can afford $200 million, and neither of them in 2030 can afford $100 million. I mean, Joe, let's just be honest with ourselves. Texas and Oklahoma are taking it on the back this year. By the way, they're fighting at a deficit right now. They had to pay out the Big 12. They're fighting at a deficit. Now, for Texas, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Okay. Oklahoma, why they're quiet? Why is their money not being spent there? I mean, like, let's not act as if that Texas, the most money out of everybody, is taking a punch in the mouth right now in reference to having to pay the Big 12. Now, I would just throw this your way, okay? And we'll get to that later. If Texas is having problems, you ain't paying $100 million. Florida State ain't got money like that. They don't. I'm sorry. There's a lot of rich people.
They have money, but it would be very irresponsible and impatient to spend that much.
Hey, and guess what? Well, you might owe $50 million to Mike Norvell.
But the whole point with that, and this is why the whole ACC thing is just a convoluted mess, because if you remember, it was brought up, if they were going to get that $100 million, they were going to look elsewhere for it. So they were going to, remember, they were going to get private equity involved, and they were going to get an investment that was going to give them the $100 million. Yeah. It's just turning into one gigantic consulting circle jerk of the next thing that we need in college football.
Think about this. Think if I'm a billionaire and I buy Florida State, and the first thing that I got to do is do a TV deal for them.
Right. You're better off just being patient.
Yeah, you let them crash and burn, and then when things get, you can strike, then strike. I mean,
right.
Has seen here nor there. All right. Let's get to it here. Let's talk about our good friends over at betonline.ag. When Joe and I come back, we'll break down our top 5 head coaches in the SEC. In the meantime, do us a favor. Hit the like and share. Share to all those groups if you're on Facebook and to all those social media pages. You're watching us, listening to us on YouTube. Like, subscribe, notification bell. Excuse me. That protein shake made me belch. Where you listen to podcast, it was pretty gross. I ain't going to lie. But I put strawberries in it. It wasn't that bad. We're going to talk about Steve Sarkisian in this list. Yeah, they are. So, Joe and I are going to discuss our top 5 SEC head coaches. I'm going to let you go off with your list first. My man, who are your top 5 head coaches in the SEC?
My top 5, number 1, Kirby Smart. Number 2, I know, real shocking there. Number 2, Steve Sarkisian of Texas. Number 3, and this pained the hell out of me. I was trying to make the argument to not put him here.
Of course.
But I have him here. Number 3, Brian Kelly. Number 4, Kalen DeBoer at Bama, and number 5, Josh Heupel of Tennessee.
I'm just going to read off mine really quickly, Kirby, because we're pretty much the same here outside of one. So we look 1 through 4. If you're listening to us on the audio podcast, 1, 2, 3, and 5 for me and Joe are the exact same. Kirby Smart, Steve Sarkisian, Brian Kelly, and Josh Heupel. We disagree at 4. He has Kalen DeBoer, and I have Lane Kiffin. Where do you want to start off here, buddy? Do you want to go 5 to 1, or do you want to go 1 to 5?
I mean, you want to just jump into the one discrepancy that we have first and talk about it?
Kirby Smart is the number 1 head coach for us in the SEC. Joe, think about this. I don't think this is a debate, and it's not going to come as a shock to anybody. Kirby Smart has won 53 games in the last 4 seasons at the University of Georgia. Not only do I think he's the best coach in the SEC, I think he's the best coach in college football. Joe, in the last 4 seasons, he's averaging 13.25 wins per season. That in and of itself, everybody looks at – this is what we do now, and I want to be very cautious about this. They look at this past year and they say, oh, man, Georgia was down. They won the conference in a down year for the conference. Joe, Kirby's cut off the cloth of Nick, man. He's going to continue to average these 12 and 13 win seasons. I don't think that outside of maybe Dabo, if you want to have national title talks, but even Dabo, name a coach that's more accomplished than Kirby at the current moment. Because not only has he won 2 national titles, but Joe, he's been to 3 of them in the last 5 years. So there's more of a chance that he's going to get to a national title or a playoff than anything else. By the way, just throwing this out there, I mean, I'm not saying that Notre Dame would have lost here. What would have happened if Carson Beck doesn't get hurt? Are we looking at another? No, I'm just saying. All I am saying here is that is the worst that they do. Think about what we're saying here at the current moment. I mean, it's not I swear to God, it's not a shot at Notre Dame. It's a praise to Georgia. That's the worst I'm going to get? By all means, please, sweet Lord, tell me that he's not the best coach in the country. And I know that he's your number 1 as well.
Well, I mean, I'll take this a step further. This Kirby Smart is one of the greatest coaches of all time. Like we haven't given him enough recognition. I haven't heard that brought up enough for what he's been able to accomplish at Georgia before the age of 50. We're talking about a guy who's won multiple national championships. He's got 2. He's been to 3. And he has not even turned 50 years old yet. Yeah. Multiple SEC championship wins, multiple college football playoff appearances, a string of dominance of one of the greatest college football teams of all time that we saw when they faced off with TCU. He's on a trajectory, assuming that he doesn't leave Georgia anytime in the next couple of years, which could always happen. Guys sometimes leave and take NFL jobs. Steve Spurrier did it. I mean, Steve Spurrier did when he was at Florida and he won national titles.
After how long at Florida? I mean, it took a hot minute.
That's what I'm saying is maybe in year 20, he decides that he wants to give the NFL a shot because somebody offers him a crazy amount of money. But for what he has accomplished before the age of 50, there's really not anyone that we can even think of that has accomplished as much as he has.
He's got more wins than everybody. He's got less losses than anybody. He's got more national titles than anybody. I mean, Joe, are we I know that they're replenishing in a lot of positions. You hearing what's coming out of Athens right now about Ryan Puglisi? It's literally all the players keep talking about. I mean, the players do a podcast with one another. They're like, Ryan Puglisi this, Ryan Puglisi that. You know who tells you who the best players on their team are? The players. Mm-hmm. They know. They ain't going to – they know who the dudes are. Joe, it's going to be an interesting season, right, for Georgia because, look, they go 13-1 last year. And then this past season, they're 12-3. 13-3, whatever their record was, I forget. Are we kidding? What are we doing here? What are we doing here? I just don't see an avenue right now. Everybody says they got a lot that they have to replace. You're right. They had a lot that they had to replace after the national championship along their defensive line. How did that go? Ask Kelvin Banks in Texas how that went. How did that go? By the way, he gave up 3 sacks and a half. So, listen. They are going to continue to be the pinnacle of the SEC. They work harder than anybody in the SEC. And quite frankly, Joe, I think that, listen, I don't like this. I don't like this for teams facing Georgia. And by the way, their schedule was brutal. Their schedule
they had the hardest schedule in the SEC. Yeah.
Joe, they were number one in the country.
Yes.
He won. Think about this. He won 12 games with the number one strength of schedule.
Well, and that's what's easy to forget when we talk about Georgia not playing up to expectation. That they went through a gauntlet. Well, the expectation for them to go undefeated. I mean, we even said that we thought that they could go undefeated this year, and they didn't because of the grueling demand of going through all the physical games that they went through. They had an impossible stretch that they needed to survive, and they suffered a ton of injuries through that stretch. Yeah, Kirby, I don't think anyone's going to debate him being best in the SEC, best in the country. It's just the added layer of what point should we start actually talking about him of one of the greatest coaches in the history of the sport. He's at least top 10. There's not many coaches that have 2 national titles.
Here's the thing, though. Of the 5 losses the last 4 seasons, 3 of them have come to Bama.
Well, that's the thing that sucks is that he can't say that they beat, or let me rephrase. He can't get back at Nick Saban. He can't get back at Nick Saban.
Yeah, but here's the funny thing in reference to that. He's got the ultimate I got the national championship game on your ass. He does got True. That because he beat Bryce Young. But Nick did get his ass in the SEC championship game with Jalen Milroe and the boys. But I'm with you. I just think he's the best coach in the country. I hate saying this. When people say it's not remotely close, like they're trying to make is it remotely close?
No, because who the hell am I going to put
the only one
beside him?
And I mean this. He would have to win another one.
Oh, Ryan Day. Which we'll eventually do like a full rankings of our like just national head coaches.
It's Kirby still going to be at 1.
Yeah.
It's Ryan Day at 2.
If Ryan Day, he's not going to win it this upcoming year, but if you won it the following year, I think that Ryan Day would have a conversation to say that he is neck and neck with Kirby.
Joe, I'm not going to say that they can't because they get the right seeding. What did they get Penn State seeding? And then you have a young quarterback in Julian Sain that just keeps getting better every week. There is an avenue where they can now. I mean, now that this is played out, it just, again, 13 wins per season, Joe. 13. That is absolutely – but by the way, you know what that means, right? That means he's averaged to go undefeated every year.
Well, 13 wins a season though is not. That math ain't mathing, brother. I don't know about that one.
No, he's 53. He's 53-5 in the last.
Yeah, but that doesn't. He's playing more than 13 games a year, so that's not
fair.
There's never a year that he's not going to play at least 13 games.
Well, yeah, I guess you're right on that. I guess my math didn't math that way. But he's still got 13.25 wins per season the last 4 years. Anyway, all right. Let's move to our number 2 here. Joe, you have Steve Sarkisian as your number 2, and so do I as when we go down these rankings. Joe, I do think that Sark, for what it's worth, is the second best head coach in the SEC. I don't think that anybody around the country can justify not putting him at 2 if you did a conference-by-conference list. They've been in the Final Four the last 2 years. Now, here's the thing. Here's the issue that I think and the problems that people will have. Had a pretty light schedule in the SEC this year, right? I mean, it's not like that they went through the gauntlet that Georgia did. The tough games that they had, they lost. That is a fact. The tough games that they played outside of Clemson and outside of Arizona State, they lost. Two of those games were against Georgia, but the third one, Ohio State, you still lost. The question becomes, yes, he got to the Final Four twice. Is it graded on a scale at all? But there's nobody else to overtake him in the SEC. I still think he deserves to be number 2. I think that there's some context that's got to be thrown into this too.
I think it's fair to bring up the questions that you're bringing up, but where I stand with him is where he's taking Texas. Like I'm not a fan of when we do these lists just to really only look at how things were and how they've been up until this point. Like we have to expand further and go, okay, what's the direction of this? None of these guys are retiring tomorrow. There is no Nick Saban in the circumstance that is going to decide that he's stepping down tomorrow unless something crazy happens. Sark took what was a shit show of a Texas program to the point where, I mean, we play the sound every single time we come back from commercial. They were a mess. They were a recruiting mess, inconsistent on the field. They were not, all the 5 stars that they were bringing in weren't developing. They were going through coach after coach, Charlie Strong and Tom Herman. There was no success there. For Sark to have turned this around, and this is where it sounds like you've kind of come around this. You and I used to yell about this. I used to defend Sark, saying for what he has been able to transform this team into is a proven sign that he is taking this thing to that next level.
In fairness, when we were having those conversations, he had never won 10 games before ever.
Yes.
And they were 8-5.
My defense for him when he went 8-5 after a rough first season, and even after the first rough season, was it takes a lot to try and reshape your roster. One of the things that we heard from that first season is that there was nonsense going on the team bus and in the locker rooms, that nobody was locked in. There was the damn stripper monkey shit that happened. There's just so much craziness that was happening that first year, and to lock in and to recruit at the level that he has to return Texas to a top 2 team in recruiting every single year is an amazing accomplishment. And then the last part, 38-17 at Texas in the span, 2 college football playoff appearances, and he also has 2 college football playoff wins. That is some of the best performances out of any of the SEC coaches not named Kirby.
I got a high take. I agree. So listen, he's at my number 2. I want to make it very well known before I get obliterated by anybody at Texas. Okay. He is at my number 2. I gotta ask some questions though. Look, man, the second best team that you played in the SEC arguably might have been Vandy. Maybe A&M, maybe. And you struggled there. Joe, let me just, outside of Georgia, who were the teams that, and he played a really bad Alabama team early in the year. My real question would have been, what would have Texas looked like if they played the Alabama team at the end of the year? I don't think they win. I'm being dead honest. We're a play away from Alabama dethroning Michigan in the Rose Bowl. That team got better as the year went. It was Nick's worst team. I mean, it was by far Nick's worst team. They're a play away with Jalen Milroe. Remember the zone read, bad snap by McLaughlin. I mean, they're there. Joe, they had the weakest strength of schedule in the SEC, right? That is my question is, what happens if they go through more of a gauntlet in the conference?
Okay. But one, you are somebody on this show that points out that the difficulty of the conference is still better than all of the other conferences. Okay. So one, that's important to bring
this season.
At face value, playing the middle to back end teams in the SEC, you have said that they are far more challenging than playing the middle or the back end of the Big Ten or any of these other conferences. So I'm not trying to throw that in your face, but that's just, it's still a difficult schedule. You have to win your games. You have to win your games.
Well, hold on now. They weren't impressive in all of this either. They played. I told you all last season. You can't. No one can ignore this. I will die on this hill if I have to. Literally, they played up and down to the level of their opponent every week. Every single week they did. They
still won all the way through though. So playing up and down to your opponent, they still won. I think that comment is not wrong, but that comment is something that we save for in the season when we're trying to project what's going to happen. Okay, so when we're trying to say when they play Georgia,
they played Florida without DJ Lagway. They didn't play South Carolina. They did not play Ole Miss. They did not play LSU. They played Georgia and they lost twice. So if I'm just going to be honest, you face none of the big boys. And let's just be real. You face none of the big boys outside of Georgia. By the way, that was Georgia's worst team that we've seen in 4 years. It's not a debate. Okay, that is
okay. But I mean, that statement in a vacuum is correct. But the last 4 years, the other teams were insanely some of the best that we've ever seen.
Okay, but you didn't face anybody in the top 5 either. You didn't face Tennessee.
It's a fair remark, but I mean, like, are we gonna sit here and check every single one of these coaches' resumes?
Yes, because here's the problem. If I look at Josh Heupel, if I look at Lane Kiffin, if I look at Brian Kelly, and if I look at Kirby, who are their losses to? What is the situation and scenario behind it?
Well, my argument would be, though, that yes, despite playing easy teams, Texas's only losses in their first year in the SEC were to the best team that went on to win the conference. They didn't fall victim to, I think, what a lot of people's expectations were, that they were going to lose a stupid game during the regular season. They didn't do that.
They didn't play anybody other than A&M in the top 7. That's the point that I'm trying to make here. Like, again,
I understand that there's still left to be proved, but I don't think that takes away from how strong of a first year in the conference they had.
Let me ask you this question. If they go through South Carolina's schedule, hypothetically, just stay with me, and they have to go through the month that Georgia did, where they're playing 4 out of their 5 opponents of ranked opponents, I think they're going to slip up. If that team that played Vandy goes on the road and has to play a ranked opponent, I think they lose. That's the point that I'm trying to make. He's still at my – you cannot ignore the accomplishment of getting back to the Final Four and back-to-back years. Okay. No one can do it, myself included. I feel like I have an issue with, like, hey, man, I get it, but I feel like there's got to be a Barry Bonds asterisk on it. Maybe that's a better way of putting it. But
I would make the argument, though, that like a team like Tennessee this year also had a really easy schedule. It's not like he's the only coach in the conference that had an easy schedule. And Tennessee lost a stupid game that they weren't supposed to.
Name another.
Arkansas. Another team that – well, no, wait. Let's be more direct with this. We need to pick teams that had easy schedules that were at the top of the conference.
Yep.
There's not a lot of them, but Tennessee's the next comparable one.
They played Georgia and Bama.
And Texas played Texas A&M and
your
Georgia.
Second best opponent's an 8-4 team.
Texas A&M was not far off from the quality of the Bama team this year. Like it's like a hair below. It's a step below. It's definitely below, but it's not like it's awful.
Let me ask you. I'll put it like this. Alabama's a little bit of a. I think if the scenarios are the same, and that team plays Vandy or plays Ole Miss on the road instead of Vandy, they're losing.
Wait, say it one more time.
If when they're going through injury concerns and injury issues, and they're going on the road to Nashville, if they're not going to Nashville and instead they're going to Oxford, that D-line's going to eat them up. They're going through offensive line issues. They're going through running back issues. I think that it's different in the SEC for some of these, or even the Big Ten. Joe, they go on the road to Oxford, they're going to lose. All I'm saying is, for this one, I just don't know how much I can grade this now. I mean, he played a ranked opponent in Georgia and lost.
I think that you're nitpicking a little bit too much, and it's kind of funny to see that you still have him at 2.
Well, yeah, because
I'm surprised you actually didn't put Brian Kelly at 3. I'm like the listening to the way that you're talking about him, I'm actually very surprised.
To be honest with you, because I didn't want to get listed as a homer, I did put BK at 3, and I think it's justified. But here's the problem that I have with this at the current moment. BK's got an SEC appearance just like Sark does. He's got more wins. He's got fewer losses. The only difference is that one guy's got 2 Final Four appearances in back-to-back years. Everybody talks shit about Brian Kelly, which we both have at number 3 for what it's worth. Joey's got more wins than him. He's got more wins than him in the last 4 years. And don't, before you tell me that Texas, before I hear the argument that Texas was in a worse spot, I'm sorry to anybody. I covered that team for a living. They had 39 scholarship players.
Yeah,
I don't want to hear that shit.
Wait. But Blake, Texas was far longer removed from winning a national title than LSU was.
How does that winning the Joe Burrow 2019 to having 39 scholarship players? It's still a complete
general recruiting cachet, and the ability to recruit is much easier coming off of a national title a couple of years ago.
I'm sorry, that got ended through O. Going 2 years the way that they did, it was ended. They had 39 players.
But You and I both know that there is an importance in a significant gap in national championships in recruiting. There is a significant impact.
Joe, all those kids left.
I know that I'm not saying that those kids, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that Brian Kelly steps in and he is able to recruit at a high level because he's taking a program that just won a national championship. They
just won a national championship, but okay.
Okay, 2 years removed from winning a national championship. The mess that Texas was equally as bad as what LSU was in terms of what you're talking about, where there being a drop off in the talent of the quality of the rosters. So, like, I don't think that there's
if it's equal, and one guy has more wins and the same amount of SEC title appearances, then what?
Okay, he's going to have more overall wins because Brian Kelly's been a head coach for longer. They've both been head coaches for 4 years. Both of them. In the SEC specifically.
But, okay. Brian, let's just be real for just a minute.
Wait. This
Brian Kelly, the 1 year would be the Notre Dame. His first year of these wins would be at Notre Dame.
You're saying the last 4 years, Brian Kelly has more wins than Sark does.
Yeah, in the last 4 years, Brian Kelly is 40-12. Okay, Sark is 38-17.
Because Sark's first year was 4 years ago.
Correct? Yeah, and here's correct. Well, at Texas, right? Like at Texas is when he started. But here's another thing that I could throw in there. Okay, I really was not trying to anticipate this debate starting. Joe, we're talking about 12 straight seasons, or 12 out of the last 13 seasons where BK has 10-win seasons. Like, you can be mad at him or say this or that about him because he doesn't get over the hump. That's fine. But I think that when we're talking about 2 and 3, 3 and 4, 4 and 5, yeah, you got to be nitpicky.
Well, I mean, and the nitpickiness is the fact that Brian Kelly checks the box of being good enough to be at the third spot because he has so many career wins. He's got 2 college football playoff appearances. He's got a national championship appearance. But the difference is it took Sark less time to take Texas to multiple college football playoff appearances, 2 Final Four appearances, and then also to accumulate 2 college football playoff wins. This could get completely changed in one season. Like, if Brian Kelly goes on a run and they go to a national championship, it changes in one season. But, like, let's forget. You're right. I'm not going to do the whole Brian Kelly can't win big games thing because I've yelled about that with you all the time. He has one good big win in the last 5 years that I think is, like, legitimately notable, which is the game where they beat Alabama 2 years ago in his first season. That is his best win.
What is Sark's?
When he beat Alabama on the road. So they both have an equal big win in the last couple of years, and Sark has gotten further. And this is me not trying to shit on Brian Kelly. It's just me trying to point out here, that's the separation point. The point that you brought up at the very beginning of this comparison conversation is Sark has actually gotten all the way through. He has gotten through and moved through the playoff in one playoff game.
I put him at 2 and Brian Kelly at 3, but I got to be real with you. Again, there also comes – I will leave it at this. There also comes a part where one coach this season, for what it's worth, 4 of their 6 opponents at the end of the year were ranked. Texas played 4 all year. I mean, hold on. Take Brian Kelly out of the scenario. Take Sark out of the scenario. Dog, some of this shit's not created equally, and even in their own conference. I'm just saying.
Yeah, but LSU's losses this year were to opponents that they shouldn't have lost to.
I don't disagree. Okay. I don't disagree with that at all. I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Okay. I don't think the
outside of Bama, I don't agree. Other ones I would not agree to. Or I would agree to.
When you're playing in the same conference, some teams obviously will have harder schedules, but when you have that many more wins than the other team this year, Texas was the better team.
I would be very intrigued to see I'm going to be very intrigued, and not this year, but the next, when it flips and they got to go on the road to Baton Rouge. Then the following week, they got to go on the road to Bama. then I do think you start getting your real conversations. Because here's another thing about Texas too. We said it during the playoff. Joe, they got a favorable matchup. They did
obviously get two of the best matchups that they were given, but the game that they played against Ohio State was reflective of the fact that they had deserved to have gotten that far and that our eyes had deceived us a little bit because they played so tight. Now they couldn't finish because of Quinn Ewers, and we have complained about Quinn Ewers plenty, but they got to the 1 inch line, quite literally. They got to the 1 yard line. They almost tied the game up. They almost went to a national title.
Anything you want to add on Brian Kelly? Because we kind of basically
no, that was why I kind of shifted the focus to Brian Kelly. Can we talk about Lane Kiffin? Yeah, let's talk about Lane Kiffin.
I mean, by the way, our boy Pate put the Brian Kelly thing out there because people started shitting on him. 40 wins in 3 seasons. I mean, like,
well, the problem is like Notre Dame fans, like, guys, we can't just straight up say no. We're not putting him in the top of coaches in the top 10. I think it was top 10, right?
It was top 10. I mean, Joe, here's I put it down. 1, 2, 3, 4. He's sixth in wins. And that's
he's a top 10 coach. Like, as much as it pains me to admit, he's a top 10 coach in the sport.
I mean, come on. All right. Here's the interesting thing. Number 4, I had Lane Kiffin, and at number 4, you had Kalen DeBoer. Go ahead.
I'm just going to be straight here. I am not putting ahead. I am not putting Lane Kiffin, a guy who has 1 Peach Bowl win and is 44-18, which is a great record, but he has a Peach Bowl win as his greatest accomplishment in the last few years, over a guy who has gone to a national championship, a guy who has a college football playoff win, who was 9-4 in his first year taking over one of the most, actually, sorry, let me rephrase, 9-4 taking over the most difficult coaching replacement situation ever in the sport. And he also went 25-3 while he was at Washington, which is an insane record for him to have accumulated. So the success of Kalen DeBoer, I know it's short period of time in the SEC. If we're going to give Sark the bump, we got to give Kalen DeBoer the bump for him being 1 year in the conference. Lane Kiffin has not accomplished enough for me to give him the okay.
All right, let me push back. I call BS. He's averaging 10 wins at Ole Miss. That, Joe, you want to talk – you talked about – see, here's the ironic thing that I think – here's the ironic thing. You said that about Sark in Texas, right, that he had to take over a program that for a decade had been dumpster fire.
Yeah, but he got them the college football playoff into the SEC championship game.
Is it easier to do it at Texas or at Ole Miss?
It obviously is easier at Texas.
Joe, I'll use this analogy. I think if Lane Kiffin is at Texas, I think he could do the same. I really do believe that. I don't
agree. I don't like playing the hypothetical game, but I don't agree with that.
Okay, that's fair. Then let's not. He's 39-13 at Ole Miss the last 4 seasons. He's got more 10-win seasons than almost anybody in the conference, even more than Kalen DeBoer. I mean, they didn't face off with one another this year, and so we can't say, well, he beat them this year, right? Like, so we can't do that. At the same time, buddy, the state does not have the recruiting base. They don't. They can't go through high school to recruit at a high level. He's got to go through the portal. He's nailed on quarterbacks. And listen, I understand that Kalen DeBoer getting to a national title, okay, is a massive deal. It is. I can't take that away from him, okay? I also can see that Lane Kiffin literally has been in this conference for longer and has a little bit more accomplished in this conference. It's tough because Kalen DeBoer's got that national title run on his belt. I really like Kalen DeBoer. He was at 6 for me, if I'm just being blunt.
Well, I would hope there's nobody else.
I tried to debate myself on Eli Drinkwitz, and I'm like, there's no way I'm going to try to come out here and justify that. I just think that when you're doing that at Ole Miss, it's different than being at Bama. It's different than being at Texas. It's different than being at LSU, Georgia, Tennessee. Like I think that because of the way that Lane goes about his business, it rubs people the wrong way. It doesn't stop that he keeps winning 10 games a season. At Ole Miss, Joe, if he were doing this and not winning the big games, which by the way he did this year,
he's got what that was one of my first thoughts when we started talking about this. Is like he's got a good win against Georgia this year.
Well, so does Kalen DeBoer.
Right. So okay.
Right.
I understand what you're saying. Ole Miss historically is not an easy school to win at
all.
They have an abundance of resources unexpectedly with the way that they were able to spend through the transfer portal. The amount of wins that he's accumulated is recognizable. It's recognizable enough for him to create a tier separation, for him to be the sixth guy, and then there to be no one in the discussion underneath him. That's totally fine. But if you don't have any, like, let's call it what it is, like when he won the Peach Bowl against Penn State, that is in an era.
Better than James Franklin?
Yes, it's better than James Franklin. I'm so damn low on James Franklin, man. Like I'm just not in on. If you've been around that long and you don't have that many accomplishments, it's a problem. But DeBoer, in a shorter period of time, has accomplished more. Sometimes we need to take a step back and a look back and realize in the time span in which things were accomplished, he took Washington. Washington's not a hotbed for recruiting either. He took Washington in the most competitive year of the Pac-12 that we've had in the last 50 years, maybe. Took him to a national championship game, beat Texas, a guy that we just talked about as the second coach in the conference. He beat him when he was in the Big 12. So the end goal is the most important part, and he has the per season wins. This isn't a fluke.
Keep talking about accomplishments, and I'm going to throw one out here. Ole Miss has been playing football for over 100 years, well over 100 years. They have never, ever, ever, not in the years with Hugh Freeze, Vaught, Hemingway, none of them had 10 wins in the regular season ever. He's the only coach at that school to do it. I do not believe people truly understand how difficult it is to win there at all.
I recognize how hard it is to win there, but like, let me throw this your way. What has changed about college football in the last 4 years? In the 4 years that he's had. So you're now able to compensate players and you have the transfer portal available.
But here's the problem.
He's able to take advantage of it.
No.
And he's done a good job. Ole Miss quietly had the money for him to spend. It's not like he's generating it himself. Yeah, this is coming from the alumni base.
Oh, sure. But here's the problem with that. He will never be able to have the foundation of being able to recruit through high school. Texas and Alabama does. They do. He's at a disadvantage more than Kalen DeBoer. I get your Washington point, okay? But right now, he's more at a disadvantage than anybody in the top 6.
Wait. No. Hold on. But this is where I think I'm losing you. The concept of winning it at Ole Miss, yes, at a disadvantage. At the current moment, with the money that he's able to spend and that he has spent in the transfer portal, how is he at a disadvantage? He said multiple top transfer portal classes.
Because again, go back and look at Bama's roster from this year. Most of those guys are coming through high school recruiting. They will do that again with the number 3 class that they had. Ole Miss, because of the state of Mississippi, they will never, and I mean ever, be able to have the foundation. He's got to go in the portal. He doesn't have a choice. I will say it like this. If he didn't do what he's doing in the portal, if they did not go nuclear the way that they did, they wouldn't win 9 games, much less 10 games. Like, Joe, I would be surprised that I'm really am shocked that he's been able to get to 10 wins the last 3 of the last 4 seasons. I am shocked.
He's had great rosters. I'm not shocked. He's a good coach. We wouldn't give him any respect at all if he wasn't accomplishing what he just accomplished. Like, you need to win.
Ole Miss, dude. I think that's a massive accomplishment.
It is, but it's not as massive as an accomplishment as taking Washington to a national title.
But that's not SEC. I don't know.
I know. I mean that was kind of what I was expecting you to actually eventually say. Is like, well, he didn't do that at Bama, which is we need to find out if he can do this at Bama. That is the only acceptable counter argument. Is he's only been there for a year. Can he actually take this team to a title?
Well, and that's the thing. What if he doesn't? And Lane Kiffin keeps winning 10 games a year.
Well, if he doesn't, then we're going to have a very different conversation.
Let me throw this your way. I didn't bring this up because this is head coaching. He completely revamped Nick Saban offensively. Him. I mean, that run that they
it wasn't a head. That's not a head coaching.
I get it. But I really do believe. Here's my God's honest opinion about Lane Kiffin.
Okay.
If Lane Kiffin were at one of these big schools, he beat the dog shit out of everybody.
He could have left whenever he wanted to.
I don't think he wasn't offered that Bama job. He wasn't offered Texas. He's put his
Bama job thing. I find hard to believe.
I'm pretty confident he did not get offered it.
Okay, but let me last part with this before we get to Heupel. I don't. We could probably skip Heupel, but it's up to you on that. But the pressure to win at Ole Miss is significantly lower than the pressure to win at Alabama. So if Kalen DeBoer,
well, he felt that at Bama and he delivered.
If Kalen DeBoer goes on to have 3 straight 10-win seasons and they don't go to the national championship, he probably will get considered to be fired. I don't want to hear Bama fans argue with that. They would be pissed off if in 3 years they don't have a single national championship appearance.
Let me think on that. Because okay. I think they're smart enough to understand because of the Bear Bryant thing and how long it took them to get back to through the Nick Saban dynasty. We'll see, man. But look, Bama's
considering how pissed they were about 9-4.
God, they were pissed. Bro, they were pissed off that he wore a sweatshirt on the sidelines.
My point exactly. They were mad he was wearing a damn T-shirt.
You may be right. Okay, all right. Okay, I mean,
Lane could go out there and coach without a shirt on, and no one would give a shit. They'd be like, "Look at Lane, he's so cool."
By the way, this comes on the point that I made that Lane Kiffin, that he, when he saw Daddygate on Twitter, that he got.
I knew you were going to bring this up. But what do we?
All right, very quickly, our last one is Josh Heupel here. Here's the thing that I would say about yours. Okay. If you need to put Lane Kiffin in over Heupel. Man, I mean, come on.
Heupel he's reached the college football playoff.
He beat him. Lane beat him twice.
Would we not agree? Well, okay. Talk about taking over a bad situation.
Oh, he did. He did.
Talk about taking over Tennessee post one of the last NCAA punishments that we've seen to a team for paying players. And also in the most bullshit manner possible, because immediately after, NIL is suddenly a thing that everyone's allowed to do. I think that Heupel, for as much as he hasn't accomplished, has done a lot more to transform that program than people realize. They beat Bama twice.
Yeah, they did. They're 2-2 against him in the last 4 years. You're right. I'm with you. And look, Josh has completely turned that program around. I mean, they did make the playoff, lighter schedule, but the thing is that they went 1-1 against Bama and Georgia. Okay, they belong here. And here's the thing for Heupel, for me, that I think goes unnoticed. Joe, he's done it in 2 different ways. He's won 10 games in completely different ways here. Going high flying, go to the line of scrimmage, go, run the football and play defense. He adapts to his team. And I think that's a big deal too. But look, man, you're right. Tennessee did not – I think they had 1 year where they won 10 games in the last, 20 years or 15 years before he got there. And he's got – think about this. Josh Heupel's led them to more double-digit wins in 4 seasons than they had in the last 15 years combined. I mean, that's a massive deal. I do believe, though, that I put Heupel at 4 because look, he beat Kalen DeBoer this year. So for me on my list, I'm like, hey man, I mean,
well, it's a little
yeah.
bit.
The problem with that though is it because Nico's a brand new quarterback. Well, go ahead.
Heupel's been there longer. He's had more
He's
time to
breaking in a
establish
new
momentum.
quarterback, and literally Saban won the SEC with a quarterback than you inherited.
But it's a completely different roster overall. The Saban roster was completely different.
The 5 offensive linemen were back.
Yeah, but all of the depth was gone. All of the Isaiah Bond, the top receiver, had left, which would have been great for them to have if they had a second receiver outside of Ryan Williams. I understand having the head-to-head and bringing up the head-to-head, but the head-to-head has context to it. First year versus fourth year of the program.
I still feel like the quarterback scenario though is a big.
Well, Nico underperformed. So, like, are we?
And they still won.
Okay, I'll give you that. And
they still won. So, I mean, look, again, we could sit here all night and fight over semantics. I mean, look, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think you could put outside of Drinkwitz, put whatever order you want for me. Really, if I'm being actually 3 through 6, I put them in wherever.
Hot take. I think that Clark Lee belongs over most of the coaches. I'm not going to throw a number out there. Most of the coaches.
Can he have a winning season before we do that? They're still 6 or 7. Did they go 7 and 6 or 6 and 7? Let's look this up before we say Clark Lee deserves to be in there. I mean, does he belong above Eli Drinkwitz?
Yes. No, I mean,
no, he does not. Eli's
come on. I mean,
no, he does not. No, he does not.
They went 7 and 6 this year.
Okay. I love Clark Lee though. If I'm just being honest, I love Clark.
7 wins at Vanderbilt is fucking insane.
You know who got 2 double?
And he beat Bama. They're like, what?
You know who got 2 double-digit wins? Do you put him above Kalen DeBoer?
No.
Okay. Do you know who had double-digit wins twice at Vandy?
A man I don't want to name.
Say it.
James
Say
Franklin.
the name. It's like Voldemort. You can't say the name. I like Clark Lee. The problem that I would have putting him above other coaches, who?
Pittman. I'd put him over Billy Napier. I can't
put him over Billy. I can't put him over Billy.
I'm putting him over Billy because Billy hasn't done shit. Billy has one of the easiest places to win at, and he hasn't done it. He hasn't. Are we just gonna feel okay because they looked kind of good at the end of the year?
Kinda.
They looked kind of good. They didn't. They showed promise, but they went 5. They went shit their pants immediately next year.
They went 5-1 in their last 6 games. The game that they lost, they didn't have Lagway in.
Again, there was a nice little stretch that they finished with. But I'd put him over Pittman. I'd put him over Billy Napier, Hugh Freeze. I'd put him over Venables.
Florida State. Who else was in there? They won their bowl game. What's the 5th game that I'm missing here?
Florida State.
Oh, Florida State.
That doesn't really count for a whole lot. I would also put him over Beamer. I would put him over.
No, you can't do Beamer. You can't do Beamer.
Why can't I put Clark Lee over Shane Beamer?
Because it is fucking difficult to play and coach at South Carolina.
And it's so much easier at Vanderbilt.
But dude, I'm not trying to be rude, but Shane Beamer, if we're just being honest, a lot of people hate him. He had a double-digit win season, and then he went 9-4 this year. I can't put him over Shane Beamer right now.
I think he's close. I think he's at least head-to-head with him.
Okay, put him close, but he's just below him. But you can't do that to Shane Beamer. Listen, we got to have a serious conversation.
Shane Beamer's had one good season.
No, he's had 2 good seasons.
Okay, my problem when we start to prop up Shane Beamer, he has the one good year, and then they collapsed. He brings in a bunch of good players, and they scout well. what's going to happen this year? They're putting out 5 of the most athletic defensive players
I know
in the NFL draft. I don't think people realize what they're losing.
Here's my interesting thought on South Carolina. We're basically going to breeze through this ACC thing.
Yeah, we're not going to get to it. We'll get to it on Wednesday if we have time.
Can Lenore Sellers get him out of any of this hole here?
That's what. Here's my look.
Lenore, keep going. Hold on.
Lenore Sellers was extremely talented this year, and he's a really good football player. A lot of the issues that he showed, he had a couple of mistakes in the bowl game, in some of his bad performances this year. You didn't see like the real gameplay, game-changing decision-making that you need from a premier quarterback, which is fine because he was his first year starting. He needs to develop. My point is what track record do we have Shane Beamer and this offensive coaching staff of developing quarterbacks? Like Spencer Rattler was kind of didn't really take a big step forward from Oklahoma. He just played really well for what he
and they may have had the signs. Here's their schedule. South Carolina at a neutral site in Atlanta versus Virginia Tech. I'm actually going to give them a win. South Carolina State, I give them a win. Vandy, yeah. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to give them a win.
Okay.
Missouri.
Missouri's going to get them back, man. Like that.
Okay, I'll give you that one. Kentucky.
They're beating Kentucky. Kentucky stinks.
At LSU at night.
They ain't beating LSU at night. You kidding me?
LSU at night.
No.
Oklahoma.
That one's a kind of a toss-up, but they probably beat Oklahoma.
Right, I gave you the early one. I'm taking this one just to fight over some.
We're at 5.
Alabama.
No.
Ole Miss.
No.
A&M.
No, A&M is going to be so much better next year. No.
Coastal Carolina.
Yeah, they're beating Coastal Carolina. So it's 6 wins.
Clemson. At home, by the way. And listen.
I mean, we're high on this Clemson team now. I was talking to a lot of people this weekend about Clemson.
At home. And listen, I'm telling you right now, in one of these home games, like they get Alabama at home. Listen to me now. It happens every year, even when they're ass. They beat somebody they're not supposed to.
So they win 7 games?
8 games would be what we would. 7 or 8 games, yeah.
I think I just don't see enough consistency to believe that Shane Beamer suddenly gets this thing on track.
No, but we're comparing him to Clark Lee, and that was the point that I'm trying to make.
Okay, fair.
All right.
He's right next to him.
You Notre Dame people, man, you're never going to. By the way, you didn't have Mike Elko on your list.
My top 5?
You didn't hear everything about A&M's great. We'll see you again on Wednesday. Until then, y'all have a good one. Peace.